Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video. This is another US geography type reaction, and this one is 16 Oddities of US Geography by Geography King. I just saw this pop up. I'm going to be honest, I really am enjoying the geography type reactions, and I don't know, I just find them really fun to sort of learn about these random facts or these random things about certain countries. At this moment in time, we're learning a lot about the US, and I'm really enjoying it. I mean, a lot of these things, I'm assuming a lot of the people, a lot of you guys who watch these reactions probably don't know either. So as much as I'm learning, I feel like a lot of you guys watching these reactions as well are finding out new things about your own country that may not be 100% true, but a lot of these are true. A lot of these are probably not right, but I don't know, it's just fun. I find it quite interesting to see this kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm not even going to ramble too much. My intros are usually quite long, but I'm just going to get into this. I'm feeling a lot better, which is good, but I've got a really sore throat, so I'm going to try and talk. I've just spoke a lot, but I'm going to try and talk less, just because I do talk a lot, but we'll see how I go. My nose is alright, which is the main positive, but let's get into this and see what the 16 oddities of US geography are.
Hey there, it's Kyle discussing 16 geographic oddities and quirks in the US. This is a huge country, but a lot of it follows kind of a uniform or predictable geography, but there are several places in this country that really don't follow the rules. Some of these are pretty odd, some are kind of quirky, and some are just kind of like, really kind of stuff. And you may have heard of some of these, you might be familiar with some of this stuff, and others you might not have heard of. And this isn't a countdown. I'm not going to be like, oh, this one's crazier than the next one kind of thing. It's just kind of going over some unique aspects of American geography. I live in Tennessee, so I'm going to start off with one about Tennessee. It's one of the strangest shaped states in the country. And one of the quirks about the state is that if there were two people in Bristol at the eastern end of the state, one started driving north toward Detroit, one started driving west towards Memphis, the one driving north would be in Canada before the one driving west would be in Memphis. So just with how wide the state is, it's not a huge state in terms of total area, but because of the strange shape, it really does go really far east to west. And that's a good segue to the second one, and that's if you are in Detroit and you want to go to Canada, you'll have to drive south. The southwestern corner of Ontario extends to kind of just southeast of Michigan, so if you want to head to the Great White North from Detroit, you got to head south. Something else that's quirky is that the highest point in the contiguous U.S. is Mount Whitney at over 14,400 feet. And the lowest point in the U.S. is Badwater Basin and Death Valley National Park, which is almost 300 feet below sea level. And why this is so quirky is that they are 85 miles apart from each other. So in a country that's 3,000...
That's wild. A country so big, these two differences, the highest point and the lowest point, are so close to each other. What the
miles
hell?
wide, the highest and lowest points are 85
That is
miles
really
apart.
interesting.
That's pretty quirky. The next few are based upon the shape of the country. So the coastlines aren't directly north-south, and the peninsulas don't extend the exact same distance. So there are some kind of, kind of things about the latitude and longitude that you might not be aware of. One is if you're going to start in San Diego, California, right on the Mexican border, and then drive east on a line of latitude, you'll end up on the East Coast in Charleston, South Carolina. I think a lot of folks think that San Diego, being on the border is going to be much further south, maybe as far as Jacksonville, Florida, but no, it's latitude per latitude is right even with Charleston, South Carolina. Similarly, deep South Texas extends almost as far south as South Florida. So most people know Florida being, subtropical. Miami's way down there, but a lot of folks don't know that deep South Texas extends just about as far. The Mexican border right around Brownsville.
What is the culture like in deep South Texas? Is it like very sort of American mixed with Mexican kind of cultures, or like how is it? Because it is like obviously on the border of the US and Mexico, and near both countries. But I do find it. I'm just curious as to what sort of cultures are down deep south like Texas, where you're just sort of touching the borders of Mexico.
You follow a line of latitude east, you're going to end up in Miami. So Florida does extend a little bit further south than that, but South Texas is every bit as subtropical as South Florida is. And the third kind of quirk based on the shape of the country is that Reno, Nevada is further west than Los Angeles. So you think of Reno, it's up in the mountains, it's near Lake Tahoe, it's pretty far inland, and Los Angeles is sitting right there on the coast, but longitude wise, Reno is further west in LA.
That is very strange. Even though it's on the coast, that's further west. Wait, how is that? That is really weird. I mean, I used to think it was kind of straight down the south side, but the west side. I'm so bad with my with my compass sort of movements, but on my directions. The west side. Like I used to always think it was straight, but you actually see that, and it's actually a lot further west than Los Angeles
Up in
actually
the
is.
mountains, it's near Lake Tahoe. It's pretty far inland, and Los Angeles is sitting right there on the coast. But longitude-wise, Reno is further west in LA. My favorite naming oddity in American geography is West St. Paul, Minnesota. Why this is so funny is that it's southeast of St. Paul, and it's not like it's a case where it was originally founded. The historic part of St. Paul was east there, and it just developed west. No,
What the?
West St.
That's like me with my with my west south. I always get it wrong, like east south west or whatever. That's something that I would definitely do. Put west where south is, and it's just I can just imagine that being me. That is weird because obviously it's not actually west of
St. Paul. When it was founded, it was already south of the historic district of St. Paul, and now it's southeast of the city. So, from a naming perspective, I think it's pretty hilarious. A couple of placement oddities in the U.S. are that there are two places that are part of U.S. states, but you have to drive through Canada to get to them. One of them is called the Northwest Angle in Minnesota, and this is, an area is part of Minnesota, but in order to get there by road, you have to drive through Manitoba to get to it. And the other is Point Roberts, Washington, and in order to get to it by road, you have to drive through British Columbia. It's a lot closer to Vancouver and much more
That's so weird.
Culturally tied to British Columbia than it is to Washington. So those are two pretty unique places in the U.S. that are really kind of more Canadian, but they are under U.S. jurisdiction.
What the hell?
Because I like the word discontiguous, I'm going to use that as a segue into this next quirk, and that is that there are two discontiguous counties in the U.S. Well, one of them is technically a parish in Louisiana, but that's the same as a county. So St. Martin Parish in Louisiana is discontiguous. There are two different parts of it. So in order to stay in that same parish, you have to drive through another one to get to it.
What the
hell?
hell?
The other one is Norfolk County in Massachusetts.
How does that happen? Like this kind of stuff sometimes happens with countries, and it makes a bit more sense because like different countries have different kind of sort of ideas. Like some countries may think they have more land than they actually have, and just all these sort of disagreements. But when it comes to like counties and like in states, it's interesting how it's just not another county, right? Or it's just not counted as like it's not part of the county that it's like sort of in. It's just I find it really strange, but I mean, there's probably a lot of historical reasoning behind why that's the case.
Which is suburbs of Boston, so.
What the hell?
In Norfolk County, you have to drive through a different county to get to it. So those are the two discontiguous county parishes in the U.S.
So
the
weird.
next has to do with city and county nomenclature and how that affects jurisdiction. And there are some pretty unique ones in the U.S. Virginia is the only state in the country that has cities and counties that are completely separate jurisdictions. The vast majority of Americans live in a city that is also a part of a county. So, for example, I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is part of Hamilton County. And before that, I lived in Monterey, California, which is part of Monterey County. But in Virginia, things are a lot different. So they'll have a city that is not within a county. So, for example, you have Roanoke. So you can live in the city of Roanoke, but you don't live in a county at all. You don't live in Roanoke County. The two are completely separate jurisdictions, and there's no other state that does that. The only other places in the U.S. that do that are St. Louis and Baltimore. So these are two places that are cities, the city of St. Louis and the city of Baltimore, but they're not part of St. Louis County or Baltimore County, but this is not something that is statewide with Missouri and Maryland. So again, Virginia is the only one that does that kind of weird thing with cities and counties being separate. And there are 4 cities in the U.S. that are both cities and counties at the same time. So the jurisdiction is the exact same thing. Those are San Francisco, Philadelphia, Denver, and Broomfield, Colorado. So these 4 are the city and county.
I just thought because New York and is in the state New York, but that's just me being
tough. Exact same jurisdiction. So the city boundaries are the same as the county boundaries. And these are the only 4 like this in the U.S. The next has to do with metropolitan areas and how they're defined. And most folks know how the metro area populations are calculated because you can't just say the central city of an area is the entire population because say you live in Atlanta, it's not just Fulton County, it's also Gwinnett and DeKalb and Cobb and Clayton and Forsyth and all the other suburban counties. Or if you live in Houston, it's it's not just Harris County, it's also Brazoria and Fort Bend and Galveston County. So that's how every metropolitan area in the country is calculated. San Diego, California is unique, and it's the only metropolitan area with a population greater than 1 million in which the metropolitan area is defined as a singular county. So San Diego County is the San Diego metropolitan area with about 3.1 million people. There are no suburban counties that add on to the metro.
That looks. I mean, it's so close to Mexico. Again, San Diego must be such a culturally diverse city. Like I can't even imagine what it is like visiting there because like it's so close to Mexico. And I saw on a map, San Diego's sort of there, like on the how I just forget what my head is gone. What are they called? On the I just forgot what they're called. On the border with Mexico, and then like Tijuana, I think that's how you say it, is just below it. So those sort of cities are probably a lot more similar than some US cities are to San Diego, which is crazy because they're different countries. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong with that. But you just look at this and it just looks so sort of different. Just this sort of building in itself.
Called an area in San Diego. The other really unique one is Providence, Rhode Island. It's the only metropolitan area of the population greater than 1 million in which the metropolitan area is a state. So the state of Rhode Island is the Providence metropolitan area, and that's the only one in the country that's like that.
Oh, wow.
And because I love me some segues, I'm going to use a discussion about metropolitan areas to go into my next quirk about Chicago. Think about how big Chicago is. It is huge. It's the third biggest city in the country. Think about the metropolitan area's footprint. I mean, you got Cook County and Lake and DuPage and Will and Kendall and McHenry, and you got the northwestern corner of Indiana and Lake and Porter counties. And it's enormous. There are 9 million people that live in the metropolitan Chicago area. If you live there, you're like, wow, we live in an enormous city. Because you do. But New York and LA are twice as big. So for as big as you think Chicago is,
twice as big? Oh my god. I mean, that's ridiculous.
There are over 18 million in LA and over 20 million in New York. So again, Chicago is huge, but it's way, way, way smaller.
What's the population of London? Because you see the populations. London population. 9 million. Fuck me. But I'm confused. If that says 8.4 million, I'm guessing it's doing it differently. I'm confused with that. But 9.3 million in comparison to 20 million in New York. That is wild.
New York or LA. And I'm going to keep the segue train rolling as I go on comparing metropolitan areas. I'm going to compare Toronto to American cities. This isn't really a quirk or
my friend's from here,
more
actually.
of an interesting fact. And most people know that Toronto is the biggest city in Canada. The metropolitan area for Toronto is about 5.8 million people. And where would that rank in the U.S.? Well, it'd be 9th. So it'd just be smaller than the Houston, Galveston Bay metro area and just bigger than the Miami, Fort Lauderdale metro area. So if you're wondering where the biggest city in Canada would rank in the U.S., it'd be 9th. One of my favorite ones is based upon signage and topography. And if you've driven in the eastern U.S., you might be very familiar with this one. Interstates 81 and 77 are both north-south oriented interstates that come together in southwestern Virginia and are the same highway for a short stretch. And that's pretty common throughout the U.S. There are portions of Indiana and Ohio where interstates 80 and 90 are the same, and there are portions of Pennsylvania where interstates 70 and 76 are the same. But so that's not unique. But what is unique is in southwestern Virginia, if you're going north on 77, when they merge, you'll be also going south on 81 or vice versa. And when you first see the sign, you're like, what on earth? How is this possible? That's
so confusing.
Some vandal just making a joke. But it's actually because at this stretch, they're going east-west. So if you're going north on 77, when you hit the interchange, you start going west. If you're going north on I-81, you hit the interchange, start going east.
That is so confusing.
I think it's kind of
That's so weird. Like, it comes down here. Like, down here to there, and then this one comes through this way down there. What the hell?
Quirky, feature based on topography, but see those signs, I think it is pretty funny. The last two I wanted to mention are based on physical geography, and I've mentioned both of these in other videos. That's why I wanted to save these for last. The first is that the two biggest earthquakes in U.S. recorded history outside of Alaska have been in Missouri and South Carolina. So you think of the biggest earthquakes, you're going to think of the West Coast first for obvious reasons, but the two biggest ones have been back east. In the 19th century, there were huge earthquakes in the southeastern Missouri and in Charleston, South Carolina, and these places still have a very large earthquake risk, so they have to be careful there. But it's kind of interesting to think that the two biggest earthquakes outside of Alaska have been in Missouri and South Carolina.
Yeah, because you would obviously thought LA or like California is just the hotspot for the earthquakes because of the San Andreas fault. But I mean, so and then these cities are still high risk for earthquakes, which obviously means there is still, like, I don't know if it is as the earthquakes are consistently as dangerous as the ones in California, which they're probably not, or they're definitely not. But I mean, when they do have earthquakes, they can be even worse, which is wild to me.
And the last one that I'm going to mention is just how freaking empty central Nevada is. And there are so few people that live in this enormous area. So you can fit the entire state of Maine or South Carolina into this part of central Nevada, and there's a grand total of 100,000 people that live in an entire area. Actually, less than that, really. But you think about how big Maine and South Carolina are. Can you imagine only having 100,000 people in the entire state? So central Nevada is just an enormous area with very, very few
Nothing
people.
there. What?
So that's my list of geographic oddities.
I enjoyed this,
in
man.
the U.S. And it's such a big country. You're bound to get some strange stuff like this. And some of them I think are pretty funny, and they're all pretty interesting. But I don't know. I love this country. I love some of the quirks and things that make it so unique. I hope you found the information.
Shout out to this guy, man. Shout out to Geography King. Give him some love, because this is a really, really interesting video, man. I really, really enjoyed this. I don't know what I was expecting when I clicked this video, but it was pretty quirky. I actually really love these kinds of videos, man. My fun fact is that Portland OR is further north than Toronto. Really? Which also means Seattle and Vancouver are also further north. All three, I don't know what that means, PNW cities are known for rain, moderate weather, while Toronto is known for snow while being further south. What the hell? That is so weird. And other quirks and features of the US geography. My favourite US geographic oddity is the fact that Virginia extends further than West Virginia. I remember seeing that, and it is the weirdest one. It is so weird. This one, like, I remember seeing this in previous videos. I just don't get how this stuff even manages to happen. South Detroit only exists in Journey song Don't Stop Believing. Here's one. Texas is so large that this is between Texarkana is closer to Chicago than it is to El Paso, and El Paso is closer to Los Angeles than it is to Texarkana. Wait, what? I don't even know what you mean to Texas. What is Texarkana? Wait, let me search that up. I'm guessing it's something to do with Texas. Which is a term or something. Oh, it's actually a city in Texas. Okay, fair enough. I was confused for a second. I was like, wait, what? States that aren't states: Kentucky, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Virginia are officially commonwealths. Also, the constitutions of both Vermont and Delaware refer to the home states as commonwealths. The state of the longest official name, state of Rhode Island, is the Providence Plantations, is the smallest state. Fun fact: North Carolina is the only state with exactly 100 counties. 100 counties in such a small. I mean, it's not that small, but in like such like a relatively sized state. 100 counties. What is the most counties a state has? Most counties a US state has. Counties, I can't. What? Currently, Texas has the largest number of counties in the United States. The state is divided into 254 counties. What do counties do? What? Because in the UK, counties are kind of like how states are in the US. So I mean, I'm like, because obviously the UK is so small, our counties are kind of similar to how states are in the US, but we're still like, it's still nowhere near the same. But the difference between counties in states, is it a difference in cultures, or is it just sort of difference in how certain things are ran? Like, I don't really understand why that's the case. They both divided their colonies into counties largely because the importance of the unit is administering local justice. Okay, so it is kind of like differences in a few things here and there, and to sort of manage to sort of keep control of things, I guess. Why are there only 2 states in the US without counties? So some don't. That is so strange. That is so strange, but it's so interesting at the same time. I love learning about these things. Finally, someone calls out West St. Paul and it's crying. Terrible geography. That's me, though. I can't even lie. I made a mistake and took a shot every time he said quirky. There's an area in southeast Oregon that is in the mountain time zone, and the western part of Florida panhandle is in the central time zone. Thus, part of Oregon and Florida are only 1 hour apart. What the hell? Wait, how far distance? I know I'm searching a lot here, but fuck! What the fuck? That is wait, what? There's an area of Southeast Oregon that is in the mountain times. That is actually crazy, bro. Okay, that's wild, man. That is wild. I mean, this video, the comment section is just as crazy as some of these, like, some of the things in this video. But I'm making this video long, so I'm going to end it here. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please, under this video, let me know some more of these crazy oddities about US geography. And also, suggest some more videos like this that you'd like to see, because I do really enjoy these sort of reactions. And I mean, if you want more of this kind of stuff, please just let me know in the comments. But until next time, like, subscribe, and peace.